And that's where we're going to take off. Patsy, why? Why do this? He asked me. I love you. I have to. Please, Danny, accept me. Train me to your gold collar. Give me what my heart desires. Give me you. Love me until the end of time. I said, and the whole hall was silent. I moved forward into submission. Well, I guess the high priest gets what the high priest wants, Danny said, filled with anger, I believe. No, Danny Lee. The high priest gets what he needs, not necessarily what he wants. Patsy Lee, I give my thanks and gratitude to you, Lewis said. Mike came out on stage. All right, all you folks sitting in your homes and all the folks sitting here in the hall. You just got a good show of how one places self into ordinancy and the kitten tree. Shall we say she did it well? Mike said, trying to make a jest out of what was going on and also reminding Danny and his father we were on vision comms all over the garden. If you call her, means she no longer can sing? A question came from the crowd. Then they all started to chant my name. I do not need a mad crowd on my hands. Patsy Lee, get up, girl, and sing for our people, he said and pulled me to my feet. Do you accept me now? I asked. It seems I have to. Where did it go? It seems I have to. I have no choice. Girl, do as your master has said, he said, and then moved off the stage. I went into a song. Then as I ended my song, they all moved onto the stage, and we sung the last song, then bid all farewell. The curtain closed, and Danny stood looking to me. Patsy Lee, why? He asked. Please calm down. Remain as you are. Give me the brand and take me to Devar. Train me to obey your collar. Place me in gold, I told him. I will have to train you for the circle, Danny said. Then my master train me, because I am already half trained, I told him. This training is different. The training to the circle is harsh. Please, Patsy, I give you the chance to back out. I'm not backing out, Danny. My master, I'm yours. My freedom is yours. Okay, we are on chapter 32. For some reason, these videos can't go past a half hour. So I'm going to start reading 1 or 2 chapters per video. Hopefully when I learn how to edit, I will put them together and edit some parts out. I don't know. I'm trying. I'm trying to share these stories with all of you. Okay, chapter 32. The following day, Danny had all personal items moved to Devar. Then he and I went to Valhalla, entered into Lewis's office. I healed, then moved into a royal bow, with my head to the floor, as Danny went to one knee in respect to the high priest. Rise, again, I give you my gratitude to you, Miss Patsy Lee, Lewis said, very sincere. I raised to a heel and smiled. You're most welcome, master, I replied. Danny cleared his throat as he was still on edge with his father. You got what you want. Now you're going to deny me the circle gold collar. Make my life as if I am in Heldindris? Danny asked spitefully. No, Daniel, I will not deny you the collar of the circle, as she will be as if she was or is your wife. Lewis said, yes, because you're bold-headed and would not permit me to love of her being my wife. He again answered the same way. Daniel, your disrespect needs to end here, son. Louis informed him. You need to open your eyes and see that not all decrees are failure to the throne, he replied. She needs the brand to match the collar. You wish until then I cannot hand it over to you, he said. Father, you are still trying me, Daniel told him. Patsy begged for the brand and the collar. His father said, There is no damn decree, one, that says she has to obtain a rose brand to obtain a golden collar, Daniel replied. No, son, there is not. However, there is a decree that states that a lily-branded girl is not of the circle, not even within the priestessy, Louis said. My master, may I speak? I asked, listening to the two bicker back and forth at one another. What? He asked. My master intentions are to gold collar his girl. As she is lily branded, I asked him. That is what I wish. Now silence. He told me, and I could not believe him. He was just so defiant of his father. You can allow her to be of the circle without the rose brand. You are the high priest. Again, this is not an Odin's decree, Danny said. It may not be a Odin's decree, however, there has never been a lily-branded Thornton within the circle or given the privilege of the gold collar, Louis said. As that gold collar, she might as well be lily-branded. It is not like it differs much, father, other than allowed to assume oneself as if free. Yet still they are not, and cannot be given merits if displeasing, even if they are following the decrees and enforcing them. So what does a brand matter? Danny asked. Daniel, the training of the circle for a courtesan to her master is only given to a courtesan, not to a Dinah, Louis said. Father, Daniel said. Daniel, you said you wanted her with you. Now she does not have to be rose branded to be with you. You only need to own her, and she may be in Devar with you, his father said, trying to reason with him. However, not in my chambers as what I wish her, and less of the circle, Danny said. To be of the circle, she has to be rose branded. That is decree, son, Louis told him. I do not want to permanently take her freedom from her. She has done no wrong besides love one of your sons, Danny said. Very well, then do not take her freedom from her. You own her. Therefore, she may be at Devar, Louis said, and I believe trying to give Danny what he was asking for. Then I can make her my chamber Dinah, he questioned. Yes, Daniel, make her your chamber Dinah. However, she is not given the circle collar. Go collar her as a lead of the palace. I will permit such, Louis said. I felt a heavy burden on my chest. I did not want to be lead of a palace. May a girl speak, please? I asked, looking to the high priest. Is Patsy? Yes, Louis said calmly to me. Master, will a girl still be permitted to perform? I asked him. If your master wishes, so wish, yes. As a lead, you can be given release forms so you may continue at the tavern, Louis said. It is not the same, however, is it? I asked him. No, Patsy, it is not. However, you will still be able to be pardoned once again, as my son wishes, Louis explained. Father, you're still limiting her, Danny said. Daniel, I cannot give her the privilege of the rose brand if in fact she obtains none. Why can you not understand this? Louis said, seeming to be pleading with Danny. You are the high priest, Daniel told him. Yes, son, I am the high priest. However, I cannot just go about and ignore decrees for one person and not for another, or even change a decree that is not rejected by more than a handful of others. This decree you wish me to alter is not going to be altered. She cannot have the privilege of the rose collar. I mean, branded girl. I have agreed to allow her to be with you. However, that is as far as I will go, son, he said, and he was sincere in what he was saying. Please, Danny, give me what I ask for, I spoke up, saying. That takes the chances of freedom away from you, he told me. Daniel, Prince Hamburg, Prince Daniel, Leon Hamburg. If I do not have you, I do not wish my freedom. Listen to what I'm saying, please. I want you to own me. I want you to never be free of me. Will you please cease this nonsense? I almost cried. I do not want to place you into the training of the gold collar. You do not need it, he said. Daniel, then do not place her in the training. If you do not feel she needs it, then why train her to what you believe she is trained to? Lewis said, trying to assist, I do believe. Danny looked back to his father. All right, so you will reward her the collar, even if I do not train her, Danny asked. Son, place the brand on her that goes with the collar, and I will reward you the collar. Enough is enough. I am tired of bickering over this with you. You win, Lewis said. Father, just let me free her and marry her, Daniel said. Daniel, I cannot do that. If she is captured and of the circle, son, they could and would Rose brand her. Then her freedom would be taken from her. If she obtains a brand to begin with, they would not give her the respect she is due as a free woman. Do you understand what I am saying? This is why I will not allow you to wed, Lewis tried explaining. Then let me out of the circle, and then allow me to wed her. Then there is no fear, Daniel told him. Daniel, your place is in the circle. Just allow me to receive the rose brand, I told him. He looked to Brian and motioned him over to me. Take her down and have her sedated, then rebranded, he said reluctantly. I stood and moved out of the office with Brian. I could not believe all the trouble this was causing, and all confusion. It was very unnecessary. I moved with Brian down to the branding area of the palace and into a room. The room had a table and branding irons, a filing cabinet and medical cabinet, and a desk. There was a gentleman who stood from behind the desk as we entered. Greetings, Carl. This is Patsy. She belongs to Prince Daniel. By request, you are to sedate and rebrand her with the Rose brand, Brian said. He looked to me and then Brian. Very well. Please remove your clothing, he said, and I stood. Actually, Carol, there is no need in that, I heard Danny say, entering, and Carl went to one knee as Danny had entered and spoke. Patsy Lee lay on the table, Danny said, and motioned for Carl to rise. I said nothing and moved to lay as he said. I laid on my stomach and closed my eyes. The girls are not commonly branded clothes, Your Highness, I heard Carl say to Danny. Is there a decree that states they are to be stripped? Danny asked. No, Your Highness, there is a procedure that states such, he told him. Yes, well, procedure is not a decree, so on with it, I heard Danny say sternly. I then laid there with my eyes closed. I knew Danny did not want this, however it had to be. I felt a sting on my upper right arm. I jumped a little at the sting. Then moments later my eyes became heavy, and before I knew it, I was waking up. I looked about the room. I was in a holding room. There was a bed and a sink along with a relief area and one table with one chair. I stood and my leg felt numb, and before I actually fell, I sat back on the bed. I then remembered the brand the first time, and here I go again a second time. I looked to my thigh and raised my skirt. I saw a patch, and I lifted it. I lifted up some. I wanted to see the brand. I removed the patch and looked to it. It was quite pretty, I thought. It did. The brand did seem to start to burn more, so I removed the cover. As I removed the covering, the rose was a red and the petals were green. Now, for those of you who are thinking, how does a brand have color? I will explain. This is not the same brand you would put on an animal. It is more chemical brand, and the colors are actually what is burnt into your skin. It is very painful to receive. However, it heals a lot faster than a regular brand. The first brand I received was also a chemical brand. It was a lily. It is pink with green flowers, or green leaves. It was just a design. However, this was actually very pretty. The door opened and a female moved quickly over to me and grabbed my arm. "You stupid girl, how dare you remove the covering? I told the prince you should be secured. Now he will know why. I will see you receive the whip for this," she cried out, and I blinked and looked to this female as if she had lost her mind. "Speaking of my master, where is he?" I asked. "You were not given permission to speak, nor did you ask. Do you see a collar about my neck, girl?" she asked harshly. "Forgive a girl, mistress. May a girl speak?" I asked her. "What is it?" she said, as she seemed to be very upset at me. "Where might a girl's master be?" I then asked. "Come," she said, and jerked me harshly off the bed and onto the hall, and my leg felt as if it was not wanting to move, and she was pulling me down the hall. I just about fell when Brian saw us. He called to her. "Jane, cease," he said, and moved quickly over to me and picked me up in his arms, and I was never so thankful as he took the pressure off my leg. "Were you or were you not informed that I would come for her?" he asked, as he seemed upset with her. "She has removed the covering of the brand and spoken without permission, and I will speak to her owner on this," she said, determined, I believe, to get me whipped. "Why are you pampering the girl?" she then asked. "Danny will have your hide if you ever think of harming Patsy Lee," Brian said. "That is not Patsy Lee. I would not even think of harming that child," she said, and I laughed. "Far from being a child, I am Patsy Lee, mistress," I said. "What is she doing here, if she is here? Or if she was her?" the woman asked, now filled with concern. "She was recovering from her branding." "She removed her covering," she argued now. "Yes, I wish to see it. I did not know I should not have," I said. "Enough, Danny wishes her," Brian said. "Back to your duties," he told the woman, and she muttered something about not being told anything as she moved away. Brian carried me upstairs to the high priest's office. As we entered, he placed me on my feet, and I went down to my knees into a royal bow. I noticed Danny, Scott, Emmett, Paul, Mike was all there. "Bri, what took you so long? You get lost?" Danny asked as he moved over to me and raised me up and into his arms. I clung to him as he sat, and I was on his lap. "No, Jane had her and pulling her through the hall, griping about her removing the covering and speaking without permission," he said, laughing. "That old woman needs to be placed on work relief, Father," I heard Emmett say with a laugh. "Yes, she does. However, she already has and Jenny. I do not want to take her employment away," Lewis said with a laugh also. "Why did you remove the covering?" Danny asked. "I wanted to see the brand," I replied. He looked to Brian. Go get me another covering for her, as the brand will not heal properly if the air is allowed, Danny told him. Brian left out of the room and returned with what was needed to recover the brand. He placed the patch back on my leg and tapped my hand. Now let it be. Do not remove it, he said. Yes, my master, I said with a laugh. I watched as Lewis held out the gold collar to Brian. Brian, give this to Danny, he told him. Brian took the collar and moved over to us and handed it to Danny. He looked to the collar, then his father. Thank you, sir. He then said, You are welcome, my son. He said, Danny showed me the collar. I actually was excited as I read Patsy Lee, property of Prince Daniel Humberg Devar. Then, as I heard it lock, I smiled and kissed him. Thank you. Now, no more fighting, I asked. No more fighting, my darling. He said, I don't know, it says remove my kiss. I don't know how that means. He said, she should not be on that leg for at least 3 days, so make sure she is not, Lewis said, concerned. I will have a talk with Jane. She knows they are not to be up moving around for 3 or 4 days, Lewis said. Yes, father, however, she is over 100 years old, and she is starting to even look it, Emmett said with a laugh. The one is older than that. The one is older than that, Emmett, Lewis said, and they all laughed. I laid my head on Danny's shoulder. The woman is older than that, Emmett. Okay. I laid my head on Danny's shoulder, then he stood and handed me over to Brian. I felt like a rag doll, with everyone just tossing me about as if I weighed nothing at all, and I did weigh about 120 pounds. No, I did not have to be soaking wet to weigh such. Take her to the bar and to my room, Danny had said and kissed me. I want you to rest and do not be up on that leg. Jolene will be there with you if you need anything, he said. Yes, my master, I replied. Right, we will talk later, he said and waved us out. Brian took me to the bar and carried me into the palace and to Danny's room. I could get used to this, I thought, laughing to myself.